This is Boomer Life on CIBC 650.
Hey, and welcome to the show. We have a great conversation going on here today. We have Candy Ho, who is the Director and Vice President, Marketing and Corporate Relations at ElementLifestyle Retirement, and their development that is going to be starting very soon here in the next couple of months at King Edward and Cambie is called OPAL by Element. And also joining us in studio is Maili Wong, Vice President, Investment Advisor, Portfolio Manager at CIBC Wood Gundy. You must have a long business card to get all of that on. All right, so we're talking before the break about planning for retirement and having the cash flow to make it all happen, about maybe selling a house and downsizing. Do you run into maybe generational thought patterns of people who grew up in different eras of how they view money? Maybe people who are older now in their 70s and 80s grew up in a time of a harder upbringing with the Depression or the Second War, and they hold on to their money and they don't want to take risks. Or maybe people who are baby boomers, who everything sort of, as the world thinks, life came easy to them. They're a little more freer with their cash. Do you see those sort of trends?
Absolutely. It's very cultural. It's also very generational.
Yeah.
Yes. People like you said who grew up in the Depression era, they just hold on to their money and they want to keep it very, what they call safe, by having it in perhaps very low interest bearing term deposits and guaranteed investment certificates. The challenge, of course, today at record low interest rates is that they're not generating enough income sitting in these types of investments at maybe 1% to live off of anymore. And at the same time, the cost of living and inflation is going up at double that rate, right? And so their perception of staying safe is actually eating into their capital without them really realizing it.
Yes.
Yeah, and at the expense of that is their true goal is to live a lifestyle of purpose in those remaining years. And that's where we were really intrigued by, OPAL by Element, because it creates this whole way of living that enables people to live their true purpose.
Now you must have the opposite too, where people are a little too free and loose with their money, right? And you have to be the bad news bearer and give them the
Well,
give
that's
them the
not
talk.
bad news. It's just that if you go through a little exercise, have a little bit of discipline and planning, then it's not bad news at all. You can live that life.
Yes, of course. But you must have people who are the opposite of that, right?
Definitely. And, generationally, there's different cultures that we see. Oftentimes, we are educating some of the younger generation in particular on how to look at their finances or their assets as a leaky bucket, in a way. If you think about the goal being that all your money's in this bucket, and you're going to want to try to grow the amount of money in the bucket as high as possible so that later on, you can have enough money through holes in that bucket to spend on things like retirement. And of course, along the way, there are lots of holes in the bucket anyway, right? Movie tickets or groceries.
Or putting kids through university and braces and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. So what we often advocate for is to develop a financial plan so they understand what are the ins and outs, where all the leaks in the bucket are, and how to refuel that bucket in such a way that it doesn't necessarily just rely on them having more salary or income, but just as importantly, helps create growth on the money that's already in the bucket. How to invest in a very sound, disciplined way, like Mr. Warren Buffett states, in a way that creates growth on their money to then make more choices at their fingertips later on.
Now, big part of investing is a legacy, right? Having some money for your offspring. So you must have that as well. And do you, and Candy, do you have that as well? People are saying we want to invest in OPAL by Element because this is something that our children will have.
And that's a lot of the reason why people, like, there's rental versus condo, and we're all about choice and flexibility. But a lot of the people who purchase, of course, they're thinking about the asset that they can pass on, and of course the asset that can help fund the care that they may eventually need. And
And being averse to risk is obviously part of our DNA. Humans are averse to risk. It's one of the basic functions that keeps us alive. And women especially have this sort of sixth sense, knowing when you're in a like you talked at the beginning of the show about being right at ground zero there on 9/11, and something told you to get out of there, right? So I think that people are risk averse. And so how do you get them past that and to say, a little bit of risk is okay?
Right. So I think it first starts with educating people about the risks that they're taking that they don't even know they're taking. Sometimes being too conservative is actually a big risk. It's going to hold them back from ever reaching their true financial or life potential.
Yes.
And once they see that through, a proper planning process, and they can feel the disconnect, then they're much more likely to make a decision that takes them outside of that comfort zone into an arena that actually puts them in a much more stronger foundation to allow them to reach their goals. So again, it's about mapping that out for clients and helping them see what those different alternative, situations will be. Then they can actually connect with it because it's their own life. And that happens through the proper planning process. It also comes from, as Candy was talking about, having the right relationship of trust that you can actually honestly give that feedback to that person. Look, I know what you're doing right now feels safe to you, but this is what you're giving up. And this is what you will continue to give up. And this is how it will impact your family if you continue to make these choices. What if you consider this? And we'll actually map out, based on the experience we've had with several other clients, what can work. And then oftentimes they say, I never thought about it that way. It's just purely a perspective shift.
Exactly, yes.
And they're not actually taking more risk. They're just thinking about it differently.
Now, what's the name of your book?
It's called Smart Risk.
So you could actually go and read the book and get this great information, right?
Absolutely.
And is it widely available?
It is available all across North America. Amazon is one of the easiest ways to do it. It's also
the best-selling author on Amazon.
And I really wrote it to empower everyday people.
But there's a lot of financial books out there, right? There's many people have sat down and gone through the process. What makes your book different than all those other ones that are out there, do you think?
Well, it was really gleaned from the lessons I learned from some of the ultra wealthy and successful people that I've been so fortunate to work with. And I kind of distilled it down into some real life stories and frameworks that I think everybody can relate to. And it's mostly story based. It's also, real life lessons from some of the local business successful stories that have started with very little and have created a lot, and how their
mindset is different that made that possible.
Exactly.
Are they slightly wired differently, those people that start from nothing and become ultra wealthy? It's almost like they've got a chip on their shoulder and they want to prove something to the world, right?
Well, it's interesting. There was another book that looked scientifically at that, and it actually peeled apart some of the ways that the self-made billionaires have become so successful. And it can be distilled down to actually a lot of it being mindset. So the good news is that everyday people can learn to shift their minds and a way to think differently. And, perspectives on failure, for example. A lot of us are just naturally afraid to fail, right? Whereas what some of these very successful people have learned is fail fast, take corrective action, and move forward. And so don't be afraid to fail many times, right? And so it's almost one of those lessons that I teach my kids now. Right?
Yes.
Try it. Yeah. May not work out.
That's how you learn the most.
That's right. And that's how you build resilience.
Yes.
But the people, they don't want to fail when it's at a certain stage of their life.
That's
they
right.
want to preserve.
That's right.
That's where you come in, right?
I should come like Maili, when she, through the whole world financial crisis, she didn't lose any money for her clients. So I think she's got a way.
Well, we always try to look at the risk reward in any situation. And, it's all about choices you make in that moment. And, not every choice works out in your favor. And I think that's part of the whole smart risk approach, is that you take a calculated risk at that time. And if you take the wrong course of action, not be afraid to take corrective action early on, and then adjust and adapt. And so it's a process.
Is that one investment mistake that a lot of people make, is they wait too long to change course? Like if they're losing money in one investment, that they wait too long. It's like the old saying, you're trying to catch a falling knife in the financial.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a very common mistake that investors will make. If they own something and it starts to drop in value, it's almost like they self-justify and they feel the need to actually add more and they get more and more vested in this losing proposition.
Yeah.
Really.
And that's where you come in and say, listen, let's change course.
That's right. Yep.
That risk maybe didn't work out, but we'll move on to something else.
That's right. Let's get you back on
It's
track.
thinking more long-term growth then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Candy, when are you going to come back? You're going to always have great guests with you. And,
I'm so fortunate, surrounded by all amazing people. So
yeah. So how can people find out more about Opal by Element? Tell us where your Discovery Center is.
The website is opalbyelement.com, and the Discovery Center is at City Square, upper level shops, Unit 130, facing the actual corner. We're a corner unit at 12th and Cambie, and we're there 7 days a week.
Across the street from City Hall.
That's right.
That's easy to remember, right?
That's right. And I'd just like to say at our Opal Discovery Center, we will be hosting the seminars and the all this informative and retirement planning sessions, and I will be inviting Maili to help our seniors plan and the families plan together.
Great. Maili Wong, thank you very much for coming in. It's great to have somebody of your insight and stature in the financial business to come on the show and give us some free advice.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an honor and a privilege to be here today. So thank you, Zach, and thank you, Candy.
All right. So thank you. Hopefully we'll have you. I know Candy will be back. But Maili, we hopefully get you back again soon. That's all the time we have. We'll speak to you again next time right here on CL 650.